We understand, again, we're waiting to hear from Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County attorney this morning, waiting to hear a statement from her. So we're going to get you there live as soon as they take that press conference this morning.
Right. Now, they're supposed to take it at 10 o'clock, giving us a little time before we get there. We're going to hear from the county attorney as well as top investigators there. But we know it was actually the Hennepin County attorney who issued that nationwide manhunt there, kept that warrant under seal while Vance Boelter was on the loose, and we just released then this morning. And one of the new things that we had actually heard from the charges that we hadn't heard earlier is that when officers came to the Hortman home right around 3:30 in the morning, officers had actually gone there proactively after Senator Hoffman had been shot. They went there proactively. They saw what they thought was a police vehicle there in the driveway. The charges say that the officers actually saw someone shoot and kill Mark Hortman at the front door there.
And then at that moment, they say the officers returned fire.
Well, the suspect shot at them. And then the officer returned fire.
They returned fire, and then they say that Boelter is accused of running inside the Hortman home. He then escaped out the back, and that was what put that neighborhood in lockdown in Brooklyn Park for so long, because authorities weren't sure where exactly he was going at that point.
Right. And what happened was at that point, and as you can imagine this, it is 3:30 in the morning. It is dark outside. The officers don't know what they are walking into. So at that point, they sort of pull back and send drones into the Hortman home. And that's where they see Melissa Hortman has also been shot and killed in there, and they are able to go in there. This is a picture, a live picture here over at the Hennepin County Government Center as we await Mary Moriarty and some of her investigators to talk about the charges here against Vance Boelter. Also interesting to note, too, that there could be federal charges against him as well.
Because right now it's only state charges. We only have the 2 murder charges and then the 2 attempted murder charges. There's also a charge that he fled law enforcement. But then the state charge could, the federal charge could come once again, and that could include the death penalty. So that still has to be yet to be determined right now. But when you talk about a manhunt and what law enforcement went through, we're talking a manhunt that was 43 hours in time. You know, you think about everyone spending time away from their family on Father's Day and all the resources this took. Matter of fact, King, the largest search in Minnesota history.
Largest manhunt in Minnesota history. And you think about it as well. This was a man who they say shot back at officers. So you can only imagine the precautions that they had to take, the risk that was involved, because there was no telling what might happen if they were to if they were to find their suspect. Now, as we understand it, his abandoned car, and this is video right there, was found just about 11 o'clock yesterday morning. So that's when you had the agents and the officers sort of really make their way down to that rural Sibley County. You had hundreds of them down there. Then there was word that he was spotted going into the woods. An officer saw him going into the woods. That's when they started the perimeter. That's when they asked people, please lock your doors. There was no lockdown there, but please lock your doors there.
And that's the image that many people have seen. Of course, getting this reaction on social media, it was the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office that tweeted this photo that he was in fact, Vance Boelter, I should say, was in fact taken into custody.
Now, from what we understand, in the time that he went into that wooded area, is because this is down just near Green Isle. It's actually near where Vance Boelter lived. And so it's a rural area. It's got lots of farmland. It's got lots of woods. It has streams. It has creeks down there. So there are plenty of places that you could hide out. But these searchers were using infrared technology. They were using unmanned aerial vehicles. They were using the State Patrol helicopter to keep an eye on everything out there. From what we understand, from the time it took for him to go into the woods, it took hours, as much as an hour and a half, for them to get him to come out. They were able to call to him, and eventually he came out. Now, he did, as they tell us, come out armed, but they said he did eventually come out peacefully.
Matter of fact, the Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Burley, he even talked about the number of SWAT teams that were responding down that way, saying we moved our crews from Minneapolis, from other law enforcement agencies. We moved them down to establish a perimeter in this wooded area because, as you mentioned, they did not necessarily know know the circumstances, which way he could be in right then.
Right.
So a foresty area, a swampy area, so they surrounded him. They made their way in, and that's when he was able to surrender peacefully, given the circumstances.
We know he was questioned there for a bit and then booked into the Hennepin County Jail at 1 in the morning. Mugshots were taken. Those mugshots were released out to the public, says public information there. This released again, as AJ mentioned, by the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, whose SWAT team was involved in this operation down here in rural Sibley County.
I want to read a statement from Governor Walz. He said, "You can rest assured that we put every ounce of effort that the state of Minnesota has to make sure that justice is served and the individual responsible for this serves the time for the unspeakable act."
Right. We know Brooklyn Park Police, they were the lead investigating organization here when it came to the murders. But when you talked about this manhunt, you had FBI, you had ATF. I mean, basically all federal agencies. At this point, you would have to assume that TSA might get involved. They had no idea, at least at the beginning, where he was. It slowly, you know, the net tightened after a while, but this is a cooperation from local all the way up to the feds. And they talked a lot about that on Saturday, is that our local law enforcement, state, county, do a good job of working together and working well and working with the feds here on a case like this.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we have a soundbite from the governor from recently. Let's take a listen.
After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Boelter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous manhunt. Spent Father's Day away from their families to deliver justice for Melissa and Mark Hortman and their children who spent this Father's Day alone.
The governor also ordering that all flags to fly at half-staff to honor Melissa Hortman and her husband. Of course, losing, 2 children losing their parents in this situation. And you think about on the other side, you got a senator and his wife that are still recovering, and a long road to recovery that's going to take, a long time to just to get through everything that's happened in the last 43 hours.
Also sparking discussions about what security looks like for our lawmakers. We have a lot of lawmakers here in Minnesota. We know that there might eventually be changes to how you get inside the state capitol. Right now, you can just walk right into the state capitol. There's not one entrance. It's considered the people's house. And so there's been a lot of talk over the years about trying to make that area more secure. And this just might be the impetus for some kind of change over there.
We heard from our Representative Angie Craig, who talked about that on the state level they're dealing with that, but on the federal level they worry about those same very things. Am I safe when I go into a building? Because these are public officials, whether you like them or not. You may not necessarily agree with them, but they have to, their safety has to be considered top of mind right now.
We also know that police tell us that Boelter had a list of Democratic lawmakers and abortion rights advocates there that, they believe that he was going to target there. And they found that list in the truck, what looked like a police truck that he had left, they say, in the Hortman's, right in front of the Hortman home.
One of the things that's so disturbing about this case, too, is the fact that you have a gentleman who dressed up as a police officer and approached a home in the middle of the night, and you identify yourself as a police officer. You are wearing a mask. As a matter of fact, Bob Jacobson, the commissioner of Minnesota's Department of Public Safety, said Boelter exploited the trust our uniforms are meant to represent. So it really, really paints the picture. That betrayal is deeply disturbing to those of us who wear the badge with honor and responsibility.
Right, and then you have so many law enforcement out to try and find this person. We are going to hear now, she is walking up, the Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, about charges for Vance Boelter.
I want to start by expressing our deepest condolences to all who loved Melissa and Mark Hortman. They were parents, neighbors, and friends. Their loss is felt deeply by the people who knew and loved them. This act of political violence is deeply felt across our state and across the country. We also want to again express our thoughts and support to State Senator John Hoffman, his wife Yvette, and their daughter. Our office will be here to support you and your family as we pursue justice and to help with whatever support you need. I want to thank the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the Brooklyn Park Police Department, and the hundreds of local, state, and federal law enforcement officers who worked tirelessly to apprehend Vance Boelter. People were understandably terrified over the last several days, and the state owes you a debt of gratitude for all of your swift work. I want to specifically thank the Brooklyn Park police officer whose proactive intervention in checking on the Hortmans likely stopped further bloodshed. I also want to thank the members of our office who worked all weekend with our law enforcement partners in this case. And I want to thank the medical team who provided emergency care to the Hoffmans. Although police have made an arrest, the investigation is ongoing, and so I'm limited in what I can share about it. On Saturday, our office filed charges against Mr. Boelter for second-degree murder and attempted murder, allowing us to obtain a nationwide arrest warrant which would allow law enforcement across the country to arrest him. These are the highest charges we can file by complaint, and it needed to be done quickly to get the warrant out. Mr. Boelter was taken into state custody, and our office intends to pursue first-degree murder charges against Mr. Boelter. We are at early stages. We will be reviewing all of the evidence from law enforcement as it comes in and working with our law enforcement partners to develop the case. I do want people to know that given the scale of this investigation, the review of evidence will take time. I want to assure our community and all those who are grieving that we will seek justice and accountability for the victims of all these heinous crimes. Our most senior and experienced prosecutors are handling this case. Because this case is now an active prosecution, that is all I will say about the case itself. It is a frightening time we are living in. Political violence is prevalent, and the way we talk to and about each other has raised the temperature to unfathomable levels. We cannot continue on this way. In times of tragedy, but also every day, as we navigate our daily lives, we need to find ways to support one another. As our community grieves, I encourage those out there seeking to create additional chaos to stop spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories. Our law enforcement partners are building a case using facts and evidence to ensure Vance Boelter is held accountable. Again, I want to thank everyone who helped bring this search to a resolution, and again to express our grief, condolences, and support to the Hortman and Hoffman families.
Good morning. I'm Dewana Witt, Sheriff of Hennepin County. I want to begin by expressing my deepest condolences to all those impacted by the unspeakable tragedy, especially to the families. I stand here with immense gratitude to the law enforcement agencies who responded with speed, strength, and commitment to justice and public safety. Thank you to the Brooklyn Park Police Department and the Champlin Police Department. Hennepin County is proud to have your team serve in our community as we grieve with you. Thank you to all the local, state, and federal agencies. Hundreds of first responders came together to bring justice to an unthinkable act of violence. Our mission was clear: protect the public, prevent further harm, and hold the perpetrator accountable. We all shared a singular goal: justice rooted in public safety. Vance Boelter inflicted unimaginable harm to our community Saturday morning, and he did it while impersonating the very people who are trusted to protect and serve. These violent acts strike at the heart of our democracy and the safety of those who serve the public with dedication and courage. Our hearts go out to Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, their families, and their loved ones. We are also grateful Senator Hoffman and his wife Yvette are expected to recover, and we will be here to support them during their long journey of healing and grief. Today, the manhunt is over, But the investigation continues, and more importantly, the process to healing begins. We also need to mention that we know that this unspeakable act has left residual effects on many people in our communities, as we're still taking calls from people and organizations asking for additional resources. We grieve with those close to our victims, our families, and all community members. The last days have revealed the true strength of our unity both as a community and as law enforcement, bound by a shared mission to protect and serve. We stand together today to uphold the principles of our democracy and with the continued commitment to safety and security of those we vow to protect and serve. Thank you.
We also have Drew Evans from the BCA, Chief Mark Bruley from Brooklyn Park will stand for questions.
Superintendent Evans, just curious, we were with you last night. In hindsight, overnight, did the defendant give us any indication, any comments, anything you can share publicly about his mode of cooperation with authorities?
Yeah.
Decision to not take his own life at the moment, so I'm curious.
Yeah, so the question was related to whether or not there's cooperation. The individual, we can't provide a lot because it's now under the prosecutorial process in terms of what cooperation was. What I will tell you is that since he's been in custody, that starts the process, as the county attorney mentioned and the sheriff mentioned, of the ongoing investigation. And so what that does, there's a number of steps that went with that, regardless of the level of cooperation of the individual. Now that we have him in custody, it opens up additional investigative avenues that we'll be all working together collectively with to gather the information and evidence in this case.
Can you give us any additional details on how the final moments unfolded, how you tracked him, and you mentioned last night him crawling. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So it was mentioned the final moments of when he was taken into custody. As we mentioned yesterday, we had a extremely large law enforcement presence with dozens of investigative agencies and law enforcement and SWAT teams in the area because we believed he was in that area. We received information to begin with, a vehicle that was recovered that first led us to the Sibley County area, and that's what's concentrated our search in that area. We then received additional information that provided confirmation closer to the time of the actual arrest that he was in fact in that area, which is which time the command post started moving all of the law enforcement assets into that area, and they were able to close in. And when we say he was crawling towards us, these were in response to the commands by the SWAT teams that were on scene as they were working in coordination with each other, along with our State Patrol air assets, as they looked and were able to get over him and then came into custody. He was cooperative and cooperated with law enforcement and gave up peacefully at that time. This is again, as we said, the real work of the investigation now begins. They've been working collectively, and I want to thank the Hennepin County Attorney's Office and Mike Radmer, who's with us today, who worked really with our team all weekend long, along with others across their office and the United States Attorney's Office, to be working together on that. What I will say when it comes to his wife and anybody else, if anybody else participated in these crimes, if anybody else worked to hide him and provide assistance in getting away, that will certainly be something that we are looking at with that, and we will provide that information to our prosecutors that will analyze and determine whether or not additional charges are appropriate.
Can you tell us how long you negotiated with him until he surrendered?
Yeah, so it was, I don't have the specifics. The question is, how long did we negotiate with him? It was a relatively short period of time because they were moving in and he was cooperative. So it wasn't a prolonged negotiation with him. It was more that they converged on him. And because of the extremely good coordination and what they're doing, I believe he's certainly in a position where he just had to give up because he knew he was surrounded by who was there.
And Mary, I have a question. I know we're going to hear shortly from federal prosecutors.
Yeah, so if I could just say, I think, as Drew said, we've shifted into prosecution right now. And so I understand why it was important to get information out there to the public, because there was a person who is suspected of these murders. Right now, what we're trying to, everybody up here is trying to do, is to protect the integrity of the investigation. And so I know there's a tension. I know people want information, and right now we're really trying to focus on the investigation so that we don't have all kinds of information out there so that as law enforcement gathers that information, if we need to present it in court, there's integrity there. So I know you all have questions, but that's the reason we're really focusing on not sharing some information. Yes, Paul.
And I have a legal question.
Of course.
Here shortly from
Yes.
federal prosecutors. I heard
Yes.
some attorneys pontificating on the morning news, and if the feds take this, it could be a death penalty case. I don't know the specifics there. But what are we going to hear today from across the street? And do you want this case in your jurisdiction in Hennepin County?
So I know that the feds are going to make an announcement, and so they can speak for themselves. What I can assure our community is that we have filed charges. As you know, we intend to seek first-degree murder charges here. The penalty for that would be life without parole. So we intend to go forward on this case because we are accountable to protect our community and hold people who commit crimes in this county accountable.
Is the prosecution being coordinated between the two offices?
Well, so as Drew said, there was plenty of coordination on finding him, and all law enforcement, the sheriff, Brooklyn Park, BCA, FBI, coordinated together to locate him. We certainly have been in conversation with the U.S. Attorney, and as I said, I think they're probably best able to answer questions.
Is he doing the first appearance here, or is it going to be in federal court in St. Paul?
Well, what would happen typically is that he would make an appearance, a first appearance in state court here at 1:30. We have been told that the feds were going to pick him up at 10, and then the feds can answer other questions about that. Thank you so much.
Must do. Is he making an appearance here today or not?
We just heard from Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty there. What she said was that Saturday they had already filed those second-degree murder charges and second-degree attempted murder charges. Those were needed to file quickly so they could get the warrant for that nationwide manhunt. But they do expect, as they continue this investigation, to file first-degree murder charges. Those would be premeditated murder charges, and that penalty would be life without parole.
Yeah, she went on to say it's a frightening time that we live in. She talked about the political discourse that we're going through now. We also learned, and Mary Moriarty, she just heard her say this, we are expecting another press conference, and that's coming from the FBI, and that's scheduled to be in the next hour or so?
In the next hour or so. And she says, it's, really it's going to be up to them as to what kind of charges they might file. So we'll find out much more information as we hear from them. We know he is expected in court this afternoon, whether that be in state court, as Moriarty said, that would be the normal course, or if he would be in federal court. But of course, we'll continue to bring you that live here on TV, again on CBS News Minnesota. But for now, we'll return to your regular programming.